Hey guys, so today's topic will be on something a little different from the normal games I cover, and that topic is mobile gaming. So, a lot of gamers don't like to hear about mobile gaming. They think that mobile games are less developed, they're normal games with just stripped out elements designed to sell in app purchases, or they just think that they're an insult to real games and giving developers the wrong idea about what they should be making games. And all of these points can be correct, but they can also be incorrect. So let's start off with what are mobile games? Well, mobile games are simply games you can play on the go. You can download them on your phone, on your tablet, any of your small little devices that you probably have just lying around your house that you use in your everyday life. You can download them on those and just play them wherever you go with those devices. They're very popular among pretty much everyone because they're an easy way to kill time, not have to read or do anything else on the bus or on the way to work or when you're just sitting in the break room. You can just whip out your phone and play a quick game of whatever mobile game you're into. So the appeal to mobile games is their portability. They're portable, they're often fairly fun, and they're not that hard to make, so there's a ton of them out there to choose from. Now, that is not to say that mobile games are absolutely amazing. Obviously, there's a lot of problems with them. One of the biggest constraints that mobile games have to operate under is that phones and other mobile devices not only have smaller storage spaces and less amounts of RAM and graphics than a dedicated gaming device such as a 3DS would for portable gaming, but also that the ecosystem that they have to live in, so the Android and Apple ecosystems, are very unreliable. Apple is a lot better because you know what Apple products have as a developer. You know that if you're developing a game for the Apple Store, most people have iPhones of a certain version or higher, which have certain specs that you can design for. Android, there are probably thousands of different Android phones and devices that you have to just kind of hope that will be able to run your game, that you have to hope will be able to uh, basically do anything with it. Like Fire Emblem Heroes on my phone as one of the most popular mobile games right now, developed by Nintendo. My phone actually crashes when playing Fire Emblem Heroes because it doesn't have enough RAM. Sometimes I can go for a few minutes at a time and be totally fine. Other times I'll get to the loading screen, log in, and then my phone will crash back to the title because my phone does not have enough RAM to actually comfortably run the game. So that's one of the constraints that you have to understand that mobile games are operated under. There's a reason mobile games don't have amazing graphics or cutting edge technology. It's because they have to operate under the constraints of the devices that they're being made to play on. And these devices are not generally dedicated gaming devices. So, what are some of the cons of mobile games apart from the bad graphics? And in some cases, they actually have pretty good graphics. There's quite a few mobile games that have very nice graphics. A lot of mobile games that use throwback graphics, kind of similar to Cuphead, where they'll kind of throw back to your earlier styles, maybe late 90s, retro styles, 8-bit, whatever you name it. There's lots of interesting and cool developments that mobile games use to try and make themselves stand out and unique. Of course, there's also the standard memes about big over caricatures of like yelling dudes and burly dudes and slim maidens with bows that have been popularized by stuff such as Clash of Clans. But there are mobile games out there that do make the scene look pretty good. One of the big cons for mobile gaming is definitely in-app purchases. So I could go on for hours about in-app purchases, and I will in another video, but in-app purchases, the big problem with mobile gaming with in-app purchases is that in-app purchases make people expect games to be free. Because if you charge someone $1 to play the game, they're not going to want to play the game. Or maybe they'll think, oh, I could spend that dollar somewhere else. Maybe there's better games. There's not enough ratings for me to understand this game. And they'll move on to a different game. If you give the player the game for free and then ask them to pay for a few things down the line, maybe to make things easier, to make your characters a bit stronger, give you some extra item to beat a level, then now you've already invested in the game, and you're much more willing to make that purchase. And not just once, but 2, 3, 5, 100, maybe even a few thousand times for some people. They're willing to just lay down the money for the game that they're enjoying. And that is not a problem if implemented properly, but in-app purchases really make it tough for developers to develop good mobile games. If you, as a developer, want to develop a game and you don't want in-app purchases to exist in the game, you have very limited options. You can try to sell the game for money. Just go the 99 cents, $4.99, $9.99, whatever route you want to take. But that is going to severely limit your player base. And as a developer, you want players playing your game. You can throw in-app purchases because you do need to make money on this game, unless you're just a hobbyist that wants to make fun games and just release them for free. But once you start making in-app purchases, you need to decide how you're going to do that. The easiest way to make money in a game for in-app purchases is to provide players with loot boxes of some sort or power-ups that they can use to increase their power much more quickly than the limited methods that are often available in the game. But this also has its own problems. So if you go with power-ups, then what a lot of developers do is they'll hamstring the game's core systems in order to make people want to play more money. The game is still fun, but you put in systems to make the game less convenient to play, or at least over long periods of time, for players so that they want to buy money so they can keep playing, or so that if they don't want to play forever because maybe it takes a long time to get the items that they're offering for in-app purchases, they'll spend money so they don't have to play for a long time. A good example of these are gacha games. In a lot of gacha games, and not just gacha games, but other games too, you'll have a few different systems to do this. You'll have the energy system, where you usually recover 1 energy every 3 to 5 minutes. You use this energy to run stages, to run dungeons, to basically do pretty much any type of play you need to play in the game. You'll need your energy for. And you usually cap out at about 100 energy, which means that after a few hours, usually you have full energy and you can jump in and play. And this is great for people that are only playing the game for, maybe 20, 30 minutes at a time on the bus or something like this, because that means, they've got full energy right before work, they use up their energy, they finish work, maybe they didn't play on the break, and they come back, they've got full energy again. They play on the way home, forget the game until the next day, and that works for some people. But for others who want to play the game a bit more, they need to spend money to get the premium currency that lets you buy energy. And some games allow you to use energy to earn premium currency. Monster Super League is a good example of this. But most games do not allow you to earn enough in-game currency using energy to replace the energy lost and turn a profit in items, currency, or the in-game premium currency. So energy is one big thing, and the other is power and gaining power in a game. So for any games that use RPG systems or leveling systems, there's often gates placed on characters' power so that when they get to certain stages, they'll be a bit weaker than the stage itself is. And if you've been playing properly, you can probably still beat the stage with good tactics, or you can, use a good number of items or something that you managed to accumulate so far to beat the stage. You can go back and grind at an earlier stage to gain levels. But if you spend real money, you can upgrade your characters, give them better items, get stronger characters, and use these to beat the stage instead. And for people that just want to play the game and feel good for being able to beat the game and don't want to invest too much into the game itself, not invest money-wise, but invest time-wise or emotion-wise, using just a few dollars, maybe $2 or $3, to upgrade their characters by quite a bit and allow them to beat that tough stage, can seem worth it pretty easily. Especially if you give your players free premium currency. So we'll call premium currency gems. If you give your players 500 gems for free over the course of a week, and it costs 300 gems for a good item that will allow a character to beat a stage that it wasn't able to beat as soon as it gets to the stage, then players will be inspired to use that premium currency to get that item. And then they'll get to another stage, and that character already has that item, and they can't get the next item for that character yet. So maybe they want to buy an item for a different character, but they've only got 200 gems left. So they buy another 100 gems, and they go, oh, I got 500 gems a week. I only need to do this once, and they'll equip that character. But then once you get addicted to that feeling of being powerful, of destroying the stage that has been giving you trouble, or even giving your friends or your guild mates or whatever else social activities the game has to offer, once you get that feeling of being able to beat that, that can become addictive. And then you keep buying more and more items to make your characters more and more powerful, and spending more and more money on the game. So that's another way that games can not really trick you, but kind of coerce you into wanting to use the premium currency offered, to use the gems that they give you, and to buy more gems to get stuff out of the game. And of course, the in-app purchases are not actually inherently a bad thing. Like, a lot of in-app purchases for games, you look at Riot Games, for example, the makers of League of Legends, which is not a mobile game, for anyone that doesn't know that. They have a free-to-play system, and they allow you, the only thing that they sell that offers real power, because they do sell champions, but you can earn those in-game, is skins, purely cosmetic. And sure, there are some people that argue, well, skins are part of a game. I don't see why skins should be gated behind premium currency and I'd have to spend real money on them. But they've got to make money somehow, right? And skins are by far the best way for developers to do this from most gamers' perspective, because from most gamers' perspective, they want to play the game and have fun, and skins can enhance their feeling about the game, make them feel closer to a character, let them show off. But when it comes to core gameplay, skins, at least in most good games, do not affect gameplay, and this is a big key point. Cosmetics should not affect gameplay in in-app purchases, and as long as they don't, most people are fine with that. There are the people that, once again, argue that cosmetics are part of the game, they are considered gameplay, they only play to collect cosmetics, and I suppose that's a valid point, but at the same time, like I just said, they do need to earn money somehow. Cosmetics are not really a part of gameplay, they're part of the game. Gameplay is just the mechanics and the various characters and options that you can put on those characters that affect how those characters perform, not how they look. So while cosmetics may look badass and make you feel really good, and maybe for some reason you perform 20% better on a character that's wearing a cool cosmetic, for most people, cosmetics have no bearing on actual gameplay, which makes cosmetics a great thing for in-app purchases. And other in-app purchases are pretty good as well, especially because in-app purchases allow dedicated players to continue to support the developer of the game. If I'm playing a game and I've been playing it, it's a free-to-play game, and I've been playing it for a month and a half now, playing a few hours a day, maybe 2 or 3 hours a day, that's a lot to play a game, and I feel like, if the game is well made, I don't feel extorted, I don't feel, coerced into spending money or anything, then I don't mind dropping a few bucks on a game and rewarding the developers for their good work, their hard work, and making a good game that I like to play. Like, they made something cool, I want to support them so they can make more cool things, and I'd like to be able to drop money. And having this avenue to do it after you've already gotten the game is a good thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing to be able to do this. Another important part about this is that in-app purchases should be properly priced. In-app purchases that are improperly priced really make people not want to pay money to the game. And the reason for this is that in-app purchases are primarily designed for whale hunting. So whales are the key supporters to most online game or mobile games profits. What a whale is they're someone that spends a lot of money on this game. And we're not talking, $70, $80. We're talking thousands and thousands of dollars per whale. So some of the smaller whales will spend a few $100s, and we usually call those dolphins. And then the people like me that will spend maybe $5 or $10 a month, we call us minnows. And then there's the free-to-play, by the way, people, who we call free-to-plays, because they're the people that play the game but don't spend anything. So they are completely free to play. So what a lot of games do is they'll price the in-app purchases so high that most people are turned away. They don't feel that it's their hard-earned money is giving them proper value if invested into that game, even if they really enjoy the game. I'll go back to Fire Emblem Heroes again because of this. Because Fire Emblem Heroes, honestly, the pricing in this game is awful. For about $30 Canadian, I can pull 7 units. I believe I can pull 8 if I do a full pull, which is because you get a discount the more you pull in a single summon. And this is honestly just awful. Like, 7 units, especially when you consider that the rate of getting a ultra rare unit in the game is 6%, which is actually fairly generous for a gacha game like Fire Emblem Heroes. So 6%, and it goes up as you fail, the pity rate goes up. They're fairly transparent about this, which is pretty good, and they're very generous with the currency. I get lots of orbs as a free-to-play player in Fire Emblem. I don't spend any money. And I never feel like I'm really at a super high disadvantage. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to compete with paying players because of some systems that they have that I don't fully agree with, but for the most part, I get plenty of currency and I can spend it. However, with a 6% rate of getting a 5-star, $30, which for a minimum wage worker in Canada, $30 is just under 3 hours of work. It's about 2 hours and 45 minutes of work in Ontario, at least, because that's at $11.40 an hour. Yeah, you're only earning about $33, and that's before taxes. So work for 3 hours, get 6 or 7 maybe okay units. If you're really lucky, get a cool unit. But for the most part, you're getting useless fodder that you'll just use to give other units skills and never touch again, because they're pointless for the most part. Most units in these games, in gacha games, for the most part, are fairly weak. And it's really designed to have chase units come out every so often. Now, to be fair, Fire Emblem's been fairly good about this. Until recently, all units had very similar stat lines. An infantry you always knew would have this amount of stats, a ranger would have this amount of stats, a mage would have this amount of stats. And until recently, they've been really good about that. Recently, they've released a few characters with slightly higher stats, which has kind of made a few players angry, but it's still fairly reasonable. But for most games, what they do is every week, 2 weeks, maybe a month, they'll release new units that are even better than old units to entice the whales into spending several $100s to go after these new units and get them to maximum strength right away and lord over all those other plebs that only have the old units, or only have the, if they're free to play, only have whatever units they've been lucky enough to pull from the scraps of in-game currency that they've been thrown. So whale hunting is really a problem, not just affecting mobile games, but affecting the entire industry right now. And I'll touch on that again in another video specifically on microtransactions. But whale hunting means that developers are incentivized to price in-app purchases higher than they should, which hurts mobile gaming as a whole because it prices out a lot of the players. Because mobile gaming's biggest thing is that it's accessible. Everyone, well, not everyone, but everyone has a cell phone, right? Everyone's got a tablet. Everyone has access to a computer that they can run an emulator on. Getting access to mobile games is easier than any other sort of game. You don't need to buy a console. You don't need to buy a high-spec computer. You can just grab your phone, go to the App Store, and check out whatever you want to play. And of course, if you've got a shitty phone, then, like I said at the beginning of the video, you're going to be subject to the constraints of whatever developers have decided will be the minimum specs that a phone needs to run their game. But for the most part, it is the most accessible form of gaming, and it shows when you check out the charts and see how many players play these mobile games. It's actually crazy. And by pricing things too high and going after only the whales, yes, they can earn more money, but it really hurts a game's viability for free-to-play players and for the average casual player who might spend, a few bucks over the game's lifetime. Because the average player doesn't want to spend $30 to get six or seven shitty units. They don't want to spend several $100s to get that really cool new unit that came out and, have a few extra pixels that are stronger than the other person's extra pixels. And obviously this is the gross oversimplification of what gaming is and what pixels are, but you get the point. You don't want to spend $900 to get that super awesome OP unit that just came out, when in 2 weeks a super awesome OP unit is going to come out that makes your super awesome OP unit invalid, because now they have a stronger unit that counters your unit and makes them not as good as they were. And that's really a problem. If that unit was $20 to get to max level, max strength, all the best items for it, then you had to spend $5 to guarantee that you'll get it, or $5 at least for a really good chance at it, and $10 to guarantee you'll get it, then a lot more people would get that unit. But that would remove the prestige, which is what a lot of whales go for. A lot of the whales are going for the prestige of having this powerful unit, the prestige of being the best in the game because they've spent the most money. If you go to these games, they'll often have a PvP arena, and if you look at the top, it's dominated by players that have the best units at the highest levels, way before free-to-play players or free players can really ever get there. And it definitely hurts the viability of a game when you're pricing out all but the most addicted or the most wealthy of your players. But in-app purchases are only one of the cons of mobile gaming, apart from the graphics. Another of the cons is that generally mobile games, for the most part, I'm not going to say for everything, but just generally, have less story and less substance behind the game. And some of this can be attributed to in-app purchases kind of gutting core gameplay elements, which happens in normal games now as well, actually. If anyone wants to pay attention to Star Wars Battlefront 2, the developers at EA and DICE have been receiving a lot of flack recently for how they've made the progression system tied to loot boxes, which is not something anyone ever asked for and not something anyone ever wants in a title you're paying between $60 and $100 for. Mobile games can get away with it, though, because they are usually free. But anyways, back to core gameplay systems are often less fleshed out because they have less to work with due to the aforementioned lack of space and worse hardware. And stories are usually a lot more formulaic because there's just so many games on the market. Of course, that's not to say there aren't some true gems out there, and one of the big pluses is that a lot of older games, older classics from the 90s and the early, mid, and late 2000s have been appearing on the App Store. I am just slightly on the younger side for the original Final Fantasy games, and I never owned a PlayStation growing up. So I was able to play the original Final Fantasy games all on my iPod. I played Bard's Tale and several other great older games on my phone, just fairly recently even. Like, the App Store and mobile gaming has created a great place for these older games, especially the old classics, like the true gems of gaming that have, for the past 10, 20 years, they've been given a kind of like a new life, a new breath of life, a second chance to really attract a new generation, or even an older generation that just didn't have the chance to play it the last time they were really relevant. Because mobile gaming, they have the specs to run these things. Like your phone now, the average phone is probably more powerful than most people's computers were 10 years ago, just because of how quickly technology advances, which means that we can play all these games on our phones. And it's really easy. And that's great, because that means that old games with great stories, interesting mechanics, or just games that kind of paved the way and made a name for themselves in the genre, all get to be played again without having to go and fish out some old PlayStation 2 or PlayStation 1 or go through all the trouble of making a console emulator on your computer. You can just load up the game, either usually like under $5, and just play them. And that's great. Now, away from all the doom and gloom, mobile gaming is a great avenue for both developers and gamers. It gives the casual person that's not really into gaming the avenue to really get into gaming. Like, a lot of people's mothers, or even their fathers, if they're from an older generation, we're not gamers. Like my parents bought each other the original Nintendo Game Boy when they first came out, but after that they kind of stopped gaming because life took over. I was born, they entered the military, and they just didn't really have the chance to really game that much. But with mobile gaming, my mother has played lots of different puzzle games, lots of different mobile games. I don't think my father's all that into them, but I know plenty of people's fathers who are. And there's all these stories on the internet of, 30, 40, 50-year-old mothers playing Candy Crush, playing Clash of Clans, playing whatever saga game has just been released, and, interacting, having fun, making communities, and it's great. It's great to have the casual person really get introduced into gaming in such an easy fashion. And the other thing is, like I just said, they're so easy to get into. For real gamers as well. Like there are so many mobile games that there are mobile games that are, if not really properly competitive, like a true game on the PC or on console, such as League of Legends, Call of Duty, Halo, Battlerite, World of Warcraft, if you consider the arena competitive. Um, sure, mobile games usually aren't competitive like that unless it's a strategy game, and there's usually some form of buy-in to allow yourself to get to the top ranks. But there are games for everyone. There are competitive games for gamers that want something to do, while they're not able to game, maybe on their way to work, maybe at work, and mobile gaming provides this avenue. It's also great for not just letting casual gamers play games, but for introducing casual gamers to a gamer's lifestyle without alienating them. I had to try for years to get my fiance to play games, and she likes games. Like she's always been a Nintendo fangirl. She loves Final Fantasy. She loves a lot of the older games. She was a big Tetris fan growing up. But as we went through university and she entered her masters, she's had less and less time to play these games, especially games that I play, which are often PvP games online, which require you to play fairly often and get good at and learn the tips and the tricks and maybe unlock characters, and she just doesn't have the time for that. But with mobile games, especially ones with energy systems or systems so that you only need to play for maybe half an hour to an hour a day to kind of keep up with everyone, are great because they let her just kind of get home at the end of a long day, collapse into bed, just grab her tablet or her phone and bang out a few missions, get a few items, make her characters a bit more powerful. Maybe she'll pull some really cool character in whatever gacha we're playing, Fire Emblem for example, and be all excited to show me the next time I get it. Or maybe we'll both save up our currency together so that we can both make a pull at the same time and see what each other gets. And that's great. It lets us, it really creates a bridge. It's to sort of bridge the gap between the casual gamer or the casual person that doesn't really play games and the hardcore gamer that wants to involve his loved ones or his friends in this hobby without forcing them to play the long hours or grind that a lot of the games they might play in their free time force them to go through. For example, if I wanted to introduce someone to Warframe without having them pay out the ass for money for items and stuff, good luck. If I wanted to introduce them to Absolver or Street Fighter or Killer Instinct or any other fighting game, well, the learning curve for fighting games is well known to be really, really high once you get past the beginning I spam buttons and somehow win stage. And if I wanted them to get into League of Legends or something without having to spend tons of money on champions, I'd have to just force them to play one champion and probably have them support me and go bot lane. And for some people, that's not what they want to do in the game. Maybe, they want to play jungle and they want to have a huge pool of champions to play from because they play different champions every match. And that's their playstyle. And they would not have the time to grind out those champions or to grind out those characters or to learn the combos in a fighting game or figure out the intricacies of a tactics game and what units do what and why you're supposed to use these units here. But a mobile game because of usually the slightly or even very reduced complexity, lets these gamers really get in a casual setting. And then the good games usually offer more advanced things that you can get into after the casual level. while still being easy to get into and fairly easy to learn. For example, I'm playing a game called The Alchemist Code right now, and it's a lot of fun, and there's quite a few different things to learn in the game, but at its core, it's a fairly simple tactics game. You have your characters, they each have a movement rate, and you just move them and attack the enemies, and the enemies attack you. And that's all fairly simple, but there's a lot to get into under the hood that a dedicated gamer can really delve into. And that's a great thing, honestly. So mobile games, to wrap this up, they have their good and their bad aspects. For the bad side, obviously, they've really made in-app purchases and microtransactions popular. They've really showed just how much money can be made in these areas. They've also, they have to cater to the fact that while everyone has a phone, pretty much, not everyone's phone is good enough to run a game with the graphics they may want to design. Not everyone has the same ecosystem. You can't really design exactly the same for Apple as you do for Android, so either to split them up or design for both platforms at once. And some of the games really prey hard on whales, which means the casual gamer is just not going to do as well in those games. They can still have fun, but they're never going to reach the top as long as the game continues to hunt for the whales. However, on the plus side, these games are a godsend for getting casuals into gaming and for involving casuals in your gaming hobby or your gaming life. They offer new ways to get old classics out, such as Bard's Tale, the Neverwinter series, Baldur's Gate, old tactics games especially. They offer great ways to get these old games out and into the hands of a new generation or even new generations of players to test out and play and see these old masterpieces come back to life. And really, they're fun. They're easy to access. They're everywhere. There's tons of choices. If you're a puzzle gamer, there's hundreds of games for you. If you're a RPG player, hundreds of games for you. If you like tactics, if you like board games, there's a mobile game out there for you. They're a lot of fun. They're easy to get into, and like I said, they're a lot of fun. It bears emphasis. They're a lot of fun, and they're easy to bring along. Anywhere you go, you can bring your mobile games because they're just right there in your pocket on your phone. Anyways, guys, I'm making this video just because I'm not going to be focusing on mobile games, but I will be introducing a few mobile games that I play to the channel, just for a few guides for them. Anyways, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you like it, and have a good one.